just for a serious pivot for a second, just to set the scene on climate change. So, as I'm sure many of you appreciate, climate change presents a major global risk to sustainable development. As the Earth warms faster than at any other point in recorded history, changing and less predictable weather patterns are causing harm to humans, the ecosystems we depend on, and the places we live. And addressing climate change is also a human rights issue because of its interlinkages to poverty, justice, inequality. And we know the biggest impact socially, economically, and financially is on vulnerable and marginalized people. We recognize and appreciate the work that our partner organizations are already doing to respond to local needs and communities. And we as a program want to bolster our support for climate resilience, climate mitigation, climate adaptation through continuing to invest in you and the critical work that you do as partners. And so that's why climate action has been selected as the theme for round 6 of the Impact Fund. I'm personally very much looking forward to this round, and particularly the opportunity to read about and engage with fantastic projects that are going to make a real impact in your communities. And we expect these projects to span both a range of subcategories, which may include disaster resilience, risk reduction, conservation, food and nutrition security, the environment, to name a few, as well as a range of dimensions, advocacy and awareness, working with communities on adaptation resilience, capacity strengthening, influencing policy, strengthening leadership, just again, naming a few. So I hope you're looking forward to this round as much as we are. And with that, welcome to round 6 of the Impact Fund. So we officially launched last week on Monday, and we opened the window. So technically, you don't need this session, and you could quit out of this session. You can go and you can submit your application today if you wish. But if you do stay, I hope there'll be some valuable information that you take away, even if you take a bite-sized piece of information that's helpful in some way. This is both for our staff to help our partners and the partners themselves in potentially drawing up an application. So let me tell you about today's session. So the session is called Tips for Writing Great Grant Applications for Round 6. And it's pretty straightforward in the title in what we're trying to achieve. In the first half of the session, I'll take you through a presentation on grant writing, in particular, how to respond to the key segments of the application, what criteria are used to assess your application, and tips for completing your application. And you'll have a chance to ask questions. In the second half of the session, I'll be conducting an interview with a partner organization who is a successful grant recipient of the Impact Fund in round 5 and is currently implementing their project. So today we have Ms. Sylvia Sagar from Women in Business Development, Inc., who I will introduce to you a little later on. You'll also have a chance to ask Sylvia questions on her organization's experience at that stage. So that's our agenda for today. I hope that sounds good. Just to warm up and to make sure you're there and engaged, I'd love to start with a few questions to you all. And in responding to the questions, you have a couple of options. So down the bottom of your screen, you should have the option in reactions of responding with an emoji that will pop up on your video, on your screen. So if you click reactions now, you can have a look at the array of options that you have. So you have a thumbs up, a crying face, a heart, even a tick, whatever you like. So that's one option in responding to the questions. The other one is if you want to use your webcam, you could be old school and you could give me a physical thumbs up if you still remember how to give the thumbs up. Okay, so the first question, I'd just love to know the composition of the group today, just so I can tailor the presentation as best as possible. So I'm just going to be asking you essentially which of these groups you kind of represent or are most a part of. And I'll just run through them quickly, whether you're representing a partner organization, whether you're a current or previous volunteer, AVP staff, or in another category such as DFAT or a friend of the program. the first one is if you are representing a partner organization today, you can either give me that emoji thumbs up or a physical webcam thumb up. So if you give me your responses in 3, 2, 1, great. Okay, wonderful. And hello, and thank you to you guys for joining. The next category is a volunteer, but I'm not sure if we have any volunteers on the call as far as I can see, so we might pass through that one. AVP staff. Wonderful, bunch of thumbs up, that's excellent. And any other category, any other friends of the program, any other stakeholders? I hope no one says there are other stakeholder if there is a category that is friend of the program, because that means you wouldn't be a friend of the program, and everyone's a friend of the program. So, okay, wonderful. Excellent. And can I ask to the couple of partners that have joined today, if you have previously applied for the Impact Fund, whether you were successful or not, if you've previously submitted an application, can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, wonderful. Now I see the partners that have joined. Sabia Education Foundation, you're both from the same partner. Okay, excellent. Now I know for my benefit. Excellent. Okay, great. I might go into the presentation. Thank you for engaging with my emoji thumbs up. So I will take you through this presentation, which should give you kind of an idea of grant writing for round 6 for the Impact Fund. So I'm just going to share with you this presentation. Okay. So this is a little bit of background on the Impact Fund, just to make sure we're on the same starting page. So the Impact Fund, the purpose is to support partner organizations to deliver projects and activities assisting their local community. It's part of the Australian Volunteers Program funded by the Australian Government through DFAT. Each round of the Impact Fund has a thematic focus, so it has a theme that we are focused on. And we've gone through our 5 rounds so far, a range of different themes. Responding to COVID was one of them, volunteer assignment support, climate action, organizational strengthening, and GEDSI, which stands for Gender Equality, Disability, and Social Inclusion. This round that we have just opened, round 6, is again focused on climate action, as my introduction was saying too. The Impact, over 5 rounds, we have funded almost 300 projects across over 200 partner organizations in every country that the Australian Volunteers Program works in. So this is just setting the context for what the Impact Fund is. Now, these are the different, some kind of an overview of the key elements of submitting an application to a grant program. And I just want to give you this slide just to kind of contextualize where the session sits today. So in considering grant application, you need an idea, of course. You need to consult with the right people, whether that's people within your organization, your network, or your target communities. And there is the grant writing portion. Now, this session is focused on the grant writing portion. Within grant writing, you also have creating a budget, which is also key. And it's within grant writing, but it's also almost a separate component. So I won't go into any detail on the idea creation, except to say that you can read about previous Impact Fund projects on our website, and that's a really, really good place to start. So our public diplomacy team has a fantastic page where you can read all the stories about previous recipients, and you can get ideas from there. You can also filter by climate action, and you can look at your country if you want kind of a contextualized example of projects. Consultation is also an important element, of course, and we're going to focus today on the grant writing part. So the next set of slides, over about 6 slides, we are going to go into the different elements of the application form. And the application form is structured around the criteria. So they're interlinked. So as you answer the questions on the application form, they directly correlate with the criteria and what the panel assessors are looking for in your application. So I'll explain what that means as we go through. So this first section I've grouped together. There is the project overview, the outcomes, and the activity. And this is an essential component. And this is the predominant way in which you bring your idea across in your application form. So the first segment is the project overview. So what we're looking for is to have a problem statement which sets out the wider context and the problem which the project aims to address. A project summary, which outlines the summary of the project, how it will address the problem, and the high-level details, including the target group, the location, the number of participants and facilitators. These details are very key here. Often we hear about a really good idea in broad terms, but it's a little bit difficult for panelists to know actually what that project is proposing to do. So if there are workshops, it's important to outline how many, who will facilitate them, who will be involved, how will they actually run. And remember to clearly address the round theme. This is embedded in the criteria too. So of course, this round is about climate action, and climate action needs to be central to the project that's being carried out. So don't forget to mention climate action. Outcomes. So this first section also includes outcomes, which is what your project is going to achieve for your beneficiaries. And this should be framed as increases or decreases in skills, behavior, conditions, and consider the short, medium, and long term. And the long term also pertains to the sustainability of the outcomes, which we'll discuss a little later on when we talk about the sustainability piece. The last component of this very busy slide, and I promise they get simpler as we go throughout, is about the activities. So the activities should map out the project plan. And in the application form, you can add up to 3 activities. So activities are the subcomponents of a project. And these should also be connected to your outcomes. So these should all speak to each other. The last thing to note on this slide is just that this weighting of the criteria is important, just so you understand how much everything is worth. So the project overview and outcome is worth 30% of the criteria, and the activities are worth 20% of the criteria. So this first slide and these first 3 components of the application form are a significant weighting when the panelists look into your application. Now, the next few slides, again, they are still connected to the criteria. They're a little bit more specific. So while the first one looks at kind of the idea and bringing that across, this next section is based around engagement and inclusion. A big part of this engagement inclusion and why we have it in the top corner is the consultation piece. And what we're looking for is making sure that your target community is being engaged and factored into different components of the project, both the design, as well as the delivery, as well as the feedback loop. So what that looks like is that you have spoken to the right people and you've spoken to the people who are the beneficiaries or who are going to be affected by the project, both in shaping how that project can be carried out, as well as potentially actually implementing the project. And the feedback loop is about asking those people for feedback to shape how future projects will be carried out. The second component of this is based on inclusion, which is a program value and priority. So we've included this. And we're looking for, how does your project promote gender equality, women's rights, disability inclusion, LGBTIQ plus inclusion, and or Indigenous inclusion within the operation of your project? Is it an inclusive and kind of project that encourages diversity as well? The next part of the criteria, and I should have mentioned that you are welcome to ask questions throughout in the chat, and I will we'll have a Q&A section after the presentation. I'll be able to address all the questions then. So this next section is on risk. It's worth 10% of the criteria, and what we're looking for here is that applicants have an understanding of the landscape of risks that could impact the implementation of that project. So these are some of the types of risks that give you an example of risks that could affect your project. So COVID, extreme weather, political instability, other commitments of your organization. If you've got a number of projects going on, will you have the capacity to carry this out in the time proposed? Funding from other donors, and equipment safety. So if you're proposing to purchase equipment within the budget, are there safety considerations factored in? The next part of this risk is, what is the actual potential impact of the project? So it's one step to say that this risk could affect your project, but in what way? COVID can, as we've seen, manifest in different ways, whether that's the virus circulating itself or whether it's through economic disruptions or actual lockdown. So we want you to be able to outline what will that actually mean for your project, and will it stop it entirely? Will it delay it? Will it disrupt suppliers? And once you've done that, we also want to make sure that you have a plan in case there is a disruption. Now, some risks, obviously, they can't be avoided, but we want to we're trying to make sure you have an understanding that where these risks do arise, there is some sort of thinking around what will be done and what can be done to kind of mitigate that risk, to lower the risk overall. Okay, we have two more sections as part of this application. Next part is on sustainability. So this is something I spoke about earlier that I would recap on. And the reason we've embedded this as part of our criteria is we're asking, how will your outcomes continue to positively impact the community beyond the life of the project? And what we're wanting to ensure is that the benefits to the beneficiaries and to communities aren't short-lived and don't only exist within the lifespan of the project. We're trying to invest in projects that are going to have ongoing effects for both partners and partners' communities. So what do these impacts kind of look like beyond the life of the project? Here are some examples. Increasing resilience, strengthening capacity, sharing knowledge, strengthening leadership, changing policy, increasing awareness, updating systems, changing behavior, skills, expanding your network, funding opportunities, volunteer opportunities. These, again, are not an extensive list. They're just examples of how impacts can roll forward and flow on to networks and communities and to organizations in country. Last component to note here is that if the proposal, if the application does include a plan for equipment, there is a proposal for equipment, also include a plan for the storage and maintenance of that equipment. Okay. Last part of our criteria and last part of significant part of the application form is centered around the budget. Again, this is worth 10% of the criteria. And the budget is its own piece itself. And it is something that takes a little bit of thinking and planning. with certain applications that we've received in previous rounds, there's been examples where we've received an application that has a fantastic idea. And you read about the idea and it's very compelling. And when you get to the budget, it doesn't quite tell a story of what that project actually involves. So if there's one line item in the budget, it makes it very difficult for assessors to actually see what is being proposed to be purchased as part of that project. So here we have a not as good example where it just says project and the whole budget is included in one budget line. And that makes it difficult for assessors. Here is an alternative option, which is not the extensive budget, so I can fit on the slide. But it gives an idea of the level of detail that we're looking for and gives panelists a little bit more insight into actually how that budget speaks to the activities and how the activities speak to a plan for the project. So here we have a number of things to note. One is detail. So instead of just project or broad scope workshops, we have venue hire, we have printing costs, and we have design and publishing of a case study. There's also a link to the activities. So activity 1, here are the costs. Activity 2, here are the costs. And so when you're reading this, as a panelist, it tells a story and it can connect to the rest of the application. And it becomes very clear how this budget is actually connected to the different activities within the project. The other things to consider here are just the partner organization contribution and the other donor contribution. The reason we have these columns within the budget for you to input into is to show both the partner organization's engagement with the cost of that project. So it's not mandatory that the partner organization has to contribute to every budget line, but it does show that kind of commitment and that kind of sustainability piece that the PO is contributing to different costs. And other donor costs or other contribution show a similar thing, that the partner organization is connected to a network of donors and that they're looking to use a range of donors to fund different elements of the organization. So that is a high level look at the budget. So just to recap some of the important components that we went through. The first part of the criteria is on the project overview, climate focus, and the outcomes. We want to make sure there's a problem statement and context, outline positive outcomes for the beneficiaries, and clearly address climate action. That's 30%. The activities, map out a project plan and connect to outcomes. That's worth 20%. Engagement and inclusion, factor in your target community and demonstrate promotion of inclusion and diversity, 20%. Risk, show an understanding of the landscape of risks that it could impact the project and outline a plan to mitigate those risks, 10%. Sustainability, show the positive impacts beyond the project lifespan, 10%. And the budget. Include detail in the budget and a link to the activities, 10%. Okay, there's a couple more slides I want to take you through very briefly, and then we can open for questions. So some tips for a smooth and successful grant application. First one is give yourself plenty of time to write and submit the application. And try to aim to submit before the last day to mitigate unexpected disruptions. We've tried to open the window for several weeks. So it's open from the 12th of September through to the 4th of November to give our partners real time to think through an idea, to consult the right people, and to write a really good grant. So we hope it contributes to quality applications. But this first tip is just around not leaving it to that very last day to submit your application. Number two, read the questions in the application form carefully. There is a lot of detail in the application form, and there are kind of tips within the application form itself. A lot of them relate to what I've spoken to today, so hopefully the two together will connect, and they will prompt in your mind a number of these kind of helpful pieces of information when you write your application. 3, detail and specificity is very helpful for the panelists when they're reading your application to know exactly what your project involves. So please give us that detail. 4, we've tried to provide lots of resources to support. And I'll take you through specifically what those resources involve in the next slide. And it also feeds into this last one, which is ask questions and contact us or your in-country team if you have questions, queries, or if you have any issues, because we're here to support you as well. So just on those resources, the starting point is definitely the Impact Fund homepage. So hopefully you would have received a link to the Impact Fund homepage as part of the emails that we've sent out to partner organizations for round 6. That's the best place to start. From there, you can look at a range of things. So you can watch our new grant writing video series, particularly if you're new to application writing or you're new to the Impact Fund. These videos, they're animated videos. We now have them in a range of different, with a range of different captions in different languages. And they give a really good overview of kind of what it means to submit an application, some of those key elements. You can also watch a recording of the global webinar series that we did on grant writing last year. And you can also watch a recording of this, which I hope may be beneficial to the partners who didn't attend today. You can also read various things from our Impact Fund page. The applicant guidelines are a really, really good document to start through, which speak to eligibility and different types of projects that will be funded, and they answer some of the big ticket questions. Then there's the FAQs for more specific questions. So if you have a burning question that might already be answered from our FAQs. There's an annotated application form, which means that there's just a PDF printout of what the application looks like with little boxes with hints. It's more like a written version of, or similar to this webinar. And as I mentioned earlier, you can look on the website for previous Impact Fund projects. And these are really good for idea creation and using them as stimulus for your own ideas. So I hope these resources that we have available are helpful to you guys when you're constructing your application. So that is it. That's all I had for the presentation side of things. I might pause there. And you can ask questions in the chat. So I do recognize that we only have a couple of partners on the call, which is totally fine. So I don't want to put them on the spot necessarily with asking questions if they don't have any. But we also have a selection of staff on the call. And we are recording this for the benefit of other partners. So if staff have any questions that you think will benefit partner organizations watching this later on, please feel free to ask a question and I'll be able to answer it, and this will be recorded and this will be put on the website. So this is the time. Please let me know if you have questions. You can put them in the chat or you can put up your hand. Any questions from our staff? Any questions that you've received in previous rounds of the Impact Fund that may be beneficial for our partners to hear? And if not, that's okay too. Okay.
Oh, I mean, Dom, it's Lorraine here.
Hi, Lorraine.
Honiara. Hi. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put this in the chat. I'm not very. I thought it was easier to ask. I mean, thanks very much for organising this. And I mean, I guess, do you have any particular suggestions that you can offer to program teams about how we can, you know, really socialise awareness of the Impact Fund within countries, you know, beyond the kind of the standard email that goes to partner organisations about informing them of the grant? Are there, you know, any particular suggestions you have?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Lorraine. Of course, it works differently in different regions and different countries. I already know that some program managers in some countries organize their own sessions because they have already a network set up of both partner organizations and volunteers. So I've attended a couple of different sessions in different regions so far, one with volunteers and one with partner organizations. So they organize their own call and they kind of socialize it, you know, within that context, because they're already a group and they already have an agenda to talk to. And they mentioned that the Impact Fund is opening another round. So that works for some regions and some countries, and it doesn't for others. I recommend that sort of thing, particularly if there's already regular meetings set up that have an attendance, and that's brilliant. Otherwise, you know, actively reaching out to partners is of course very effective. So you know, as part of in-country kind of operations, of course, an email is just one thing, but the ability to kind of you know, pick up the phone and call a partner organization that you may know has a climate focus, or you may know has a climate element, or has had an idea on the back burner and is looking for funding. That kind of proactivity is fantastic too. So yeah, all and everything, I would say, Lorraine, would be helpful. Great. Thank you for the question. So there doesn't seem to be other questions, so I might move on to the second part of the session. And we're very lucky to be joined today by Sylvia, the program manager at Women in Business Development Inc., based in Samoa. Women in Business Development Inc. is a successful grant recipient under Gender Equality, Disability and Social Inclusion, GEDSI, stream of round 5 of the Impact Fund, for which the grants were awarded in June earlier this year. And Sylvia both wrote the application for the Impact Fund, which was a first grant application, and is responsible for implementing the project. The project's entitled Sustainable Livelihood Through Education, and it's being implemented this year and into next year. So the panel was very impressed with the application and noted some of its particular strengths. And some of my questions today will pertain to those strengths. So I'll ask Sylvia to provide a little more detail on the different pieces of the application. So I'd like to welcome Sylvia and say thank you very much for joining us, Sylvia.
Thank you, Dom. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. So Sylvia, do you mind starting with just a bit of an overview? Can you tell us a bit about what Women in Business Development Inc. does? What does your organization do?
Sure. Just before I start, I'd just like to apologize in advance. I'm in a factory, so there might be a bit of noise in the background. I tried moving rooms, so we'll see. Anyway, for Women in Business, we're a non-profit organization. We started in 1991 with the vision to help vulnerable families to earn a sustainable livelihood. We have worked and continue to work with women and families in reviving the art of weaving fine mats. We have families that we help market their beautiful handicraft, but our biggest area of work is to work alongside farmers to guide them in organic farming. The Women in Business has an organic certification through an Australian organization called NASA. That's the National Association for Sustainable Agriculture Australia. Through many years of trial and error, the organization has implemented modules of living sustainably that is unique to Samoa, the Samoan people and the Samoan culture. WIBD, as we are also known, have also had the opportunity to play a vital role in adopting this module in other Pacific Island countries, and has seen a great benefit in these islands as well. So we have a very straightforward and simple vision, which is that women, youth, people with disabilities, and their families in Samoa are able to contribute fully to the development of themselves, their families, and their country through income generation, job creation, and participation in the village economy. And it's our mission to go out and help these women, youth, and people with disabilities and their families to achieve the vision, by providing them with the skills, the opportunities, and access to finance and markets. And thanks to the Australian Volunteers Program Impact Fund, we have been able to work with specifically the disabled, helping them to live a sustainable livelihood.
That's excellent, Sylvia. And thank you to you and your organization for the critical work you do. That's fantastic. That leads on to the next question, which is, could you tell us a little bit more about the specific project that's been funded under the Impact Fund and what that project involves?
Sure. As you mentioned earlier on, the global, I made good use of the global webinar series recording. It was a really good, very helpful and a good guide for me as I worked through the process of the proposal. So I'd just like to encourage everyone out there to make good use of that and go through the recordings. But just to tell you a little bit about the project that we did. So in Samoa, and I'm sure in many countries, persons with disabilities are disadvantaged, mainly because of the lack of communication between themselves and abled persons. They're disadvantaged when seeking employment to provide an income and a sustainable livelihood for themselves and their families. So we saw firsthand when we employed our first 2 hearing impaired staff, it was very difficult to communicate with them. Hence, we were not able to give them proper instructions. A lot of times we were making up our own signs to communicate with them, but that was very hard on them. So having seen this, WIBD knew that it was at the right time to look further into the possibility of bridging this gap with not only the deaf, but also the blind. So we began discussions with our partners, the Deaf Association of Samoa, and we have a really good working relationship with the Samoa Blind People's Association as well. So we look forward to meeting with, they call the SBPA. We look forward to meeting with them more in the near future to have discussions regarding this initiative, to include the blind into our team, as we believe both sign and braille would benefit the disabled staff as well as our abled staff. We feel that learning these skills, there's more opportunity for employment for both disabled and abled staff. And we know that learning another language is always an advantage. But at this time, our focus is on the disabled staff. So our goal for our deaf staff is for them to be able to go out into the field as field officers and to engage with our farmers and the families with disabilities to accomplish an inclusive working environment for all. And it just so happens that today was the very first day that we have taken a few of our deaf staff into the field. So one of our staff is a qualified carpenter. So he is out there building a virgin coconut oil processing oven. And we already have enabled a hearing staff to accompany him, to interpret for him as he works on his task. We also have another group out in the field talking with fine mat weavers and handicraft groups. Today, this is their first visit out as well. And then we have another deaf staff member. She's helping in the office in the monitoring and evaluation department. So this is a very special day for all of us here at WIBD, and it just so happened that I have this awesome opportunity to speak as well. And we're also celebrating the International Week for the Deaf this week, so this is also appropriate. But we also have we're working with the Deaf Association, and we've asked a deaf artist to create some signs, to make posters for the team to take out onto the field so that our deaf staff can also communicate with our farmers through pictures. We are currently studying up on how we can move forward to bring the blind staff, and we'll continue working alongside our partners regarding this. We know of blind persons here in Samoa with exceptional computer skills. And so we're currently learning more about that. And we'll put together a training plan on when and how this will be implemented through the funding of this project. Our vision at WIBD is for blind staff to eventually become responsible for some of WIBD's data entry. When we were awarded the funding, we immediately hired a sign language expert to come in every Monday during our staff meetings. We have staff meetings every Monday. So this was the perfect time when all the staff are together to learn sign language. And we have since hired an additional 4 deaf staff onto our team. These lessons are proving to be very beneficial as we all communicate with great confidence now. Our deaf staff go back into their communities, telling the communities about our program and how we, the able staff, are learning sign language and how great it is to finally work where they feel they have a voice. So it's already rewarding, and not only to see them earn an income to sustain them and their families, but to see their growing confidence and understanding their worth, because a lot of them feel they start off very insecure and not feeling that they're worth much. So yeah, thank you.
That's really excellent, Sylvia. And what a day too, and so much to celebrate today and this week. I wanted to ask you about the idea itself, because I'm sure many partners would be wondering perhaps about idea creation and coming up with an idea. Is the idea for the project something you had as an organization already on the back burner? And so once a funding opportunity came up, you said, brilliant, these are the funds for this project? Or was it potentially the other way around? You saw the funding opportunity and therefore create an idea for it. How did you guys go about that idea creation?
Well, with Women in Business, it's part of our vision to help the disabled community more. So we've always had that in the vision, and wherever we were able to help, we would. So we were really excited to see the work that we've begun through this funding come into fruition, So yeah, it was part of the vision, but with the help of the funding, we were able to actually implement what we've always wanted to do. And so when the executive director saw this impact funding opportunity, she encouraged me to apply, do my very first proposals. I've just joined the team. We knew that if we were awarded this funding, it would be, like I just said, the perfect opportunity to implement our vision, women in business.
And again, well done on your first application. It was really, really well written. So the outcomes, I wanted to ask you about the outcomes that you put in your proposal. Could you tell us a bit about the outcomes and maybe how you came up with that and how they're measured? What mechanisms do you have in place to make sure those outcomes are met throughout your project?
Right, yeah. The outcomes for this initiative, it's really countless, but for the sake of the project, we identified 4 possible outcomes, and that would be, one, our staff, able staff would learn a new skill and confidence to communicate effectively with each other, embracing an inclusive and healthy work environment with all the staff employed. Secondly, to create an environment for more persons with disabilities to gain employment at WIBD. Third, to improve their financial status as they begin their journey earning an income leading to a sustainable livelihood. And fourth, for blind workers to contribute to our data collection through the use of Braille. So we believe that with the sharing of information and working together, we will create opportunities for the introduction of more people more people with disabilities into mainstream jobs. And how to measure it is by just watching how we are learning this new skill of learning sign and having the confidence now to just speak with those that have the disability. And then we're just hoping at the end of this project, we'll all get our certificates to say that, yeah, we know sign language. But yeah, that's how we're just measuring it as we're going along. We're measuring just from what we're learning. And every week we're learning more. We do reviews and then we learn more about more new words and phrases. And specifically for now, well, just now, but when we first started, it was in general. But now that the team is going out onto the field, we're focusing a lot on, conversations that will be held out in the field. And yeah.
That's excellent. So that kind of also leads on to, because outcomes are connected to the sustainability piece that we've touched upon, or at least I touched upon in the presentation. So I'm wondering your perspective on how do you make sure that those outcomes are sustainable, are medium and long term, and continue to impact beneficiaries after the project?
So our goal at WIBD is to ensure that those we work with, earn an income to live a sustainable livelihood, like you just mentioned. But our organization is different from others who may seek funding for specific projects, implement the goals, and close the project at the end. But this doesn't happen with Women in Business. Our mission is to ensure that every beneficiary is living a sustainable livelihood well after the projects are finished. So our team, we continue to go out and visit and follow up with our beneficiaries, mentoring them and nurturing them and teaching them financial literacy, as well as finding markets for their products. However, in this case, as long as our disabled staff are working, we're assured that they're earning an income which leads them to living a sustainable livelihood. We also know that by training the staff, we're teaching them new skills that they will use, even if they choose to move on to other places of employment. Yeah.
That's excellent. That's really, really good. And yes, you touched on that through the whole business model of WebD. So I know you touched on some of those elements, but it was good to hear, talk about that sustainability piece. The other part of the application that the panelists recognized was your budget, that the budget was detailed but clear and easy to understand. So could you tell us a bit about the process you went through in developing and writing up that budget?
So being an NGO, we're continuously looking for opportunities to fund our organization. So we have all sorts of different kinds of budgets. But yeah, thanks to AVI, we were given a really simple template, which I saw that you showed that template. So I followed that template, and that made the collation of the budget very simple. First of all, we decided on our activities, which led to sorting out our costs, like our training costs, the equipment, the material that we would need, and our overhead costs. But it all started with us figuring out our activity first, and then we just divided it, or just split it up. Also our,
That's excellent. And it was a great example of how that the budget kind of connects to the activities, and the costs all make sense together as a package. So I made it very easy. Last question, I just wanted to, and again, you touched on this a little bit at the start with some of the successes today, but I just wanted to hear a bit about how the project is going in terms of its implementation at the moment, and whether you'd had any kind of challenges or disruptions with implementation.
So our project's going exceptionally well. We're into the 3rd month of the project, and we've already seen lots of improvement. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, we've seen a lot of improvement in our staff, both the deaf and as well as the able staff. We've noticed that the staff are growing in their confidence in learning sign, and it's wonderful to see everyone just communicating with each other at such ease, with such ease. If you don't mind, I'd just like to share a short story about what's happening, about how confident one of our deaf staff are as part of the WebD team. So when we have our Monday meetings, we give all staff the opportunity to share any concerns that they may have. So a few weeks ago, we had one of our deaf staff confidently share an issue that he was having with a few staff members. But we were really grateful that he had the confidence and the courage to address this issue, which meant we were able to rectify the misunderstanding. This would never have happened if he didn't feel that he was part of the WebD team. So that was that in itself was a success story for us already, just a few months into the program. It is also to our advantage that other donors are supporting our work. And with additional funding, we have hired a sign language interpreter to work for women in business on a full-time basis as our project manager / sign language interpreter. So as mentioned earlier, it's our intention for our deaf staff to join our field team out on the field and do inspections, as well as to communicate with the deaf communities and families during their visits. We feel this will definitely encourage an inclusive environment for all people. It's unfortunate that we have not been able to start the program with the blind just yet, but this is definitely not far off. We are hoping that very soon we'll be able to finalize the implementation of Braille into the mainstream to allow the blind to access the same opportunities as the deaf community have. In the meantime, we're reading up on all we can about Braille so that at least the management staff understand all aspects before taking things further with the Blind Association. We have also been very fortunate to also have additional 2 staff with disabilities. We have a young gentleman who started at WebD, only being able to use the right side of his hand, well, the right side of his body, the right hand. He was working so hard and faithfully, and just a few days ago, we saw that he was using a weed eater or brush cutter. He was cutting grass in the compound, and he was holding it with both hands. So, we were really excited to see that, because previously there was just absolutely no movement in his hand. So we believe that the physical work he's now doing at WebD, he's gaining strength in his arm. And we are now looking at the possibility of him maybe seeing a physiotherapist to see if there can be any way that we can strengthen, he can strengthen his arm more. We also have a beautiful young receptionist who is Down syndrome. So we have a total of seven staff now with disabilities. But going back to your question about facing obstacles and overcoming these, I guess the obvious obstacle is the language barrier. But as I explained above, we are overcoming this by learning sign language and consciously working towards having an all-inclusive organization where we are all empowered and where we, meaning the abled and disabled staff, can earn an income to sustain our families, our communities, and in turn, our country of Samoa.
That is wonderful and beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sylvia. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. That was incredibly presented, and I really appreciate you being involved. I just want to open, if it's okay, to any questions from other participants, staff, other partners for Sylvia. Does anybody have any questions that you want to pose to Sylvia while she's here on her experience or a project or the wonderful work of her organization? In that case, can we use our reactions and give Sylvia a round of applause using the reactions that you find in your emojis?
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you for your time. We really appreciate that. And it was wonderful hearing about all of it, your experience and everything. To everyone else, to partners and staff, thank you for joining. Actually, particularly to partners who may watch this online later. I hope it might be beneficial to you to hear from our previous recipient, Sylvia, and also some of the things we went through in the presentation. And I'm hoping we receive an application from you in round 6. Thank you again to Chloe and Leo for helping out. All the resources mentioned today will be available on the Impact Fund website, and we'll also endeavour to make a copy of this recording available on the website for those partners who did make it. And last chance for any questions, but the chat seems quiet and the group seems quiet, so I'm suggesting maybe not. So then,
I have.
You have a question, please?
Yeah. Yes, I'm from the Education Foundation. I'm the online e-learning program manager. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering what would be like round 7 thing would be like education related, online related stuff, or would be or 7 or what kind of theme where we're gonna come next year's.
We don't know yet. So we haven't decided on a theme for round 7. I can tell you the timing will be similar to the timing of this round for the next 6 months, if that makes sense. So it'll be somewhere between March and June, which means we hope to start advertising and then marketing that round around the end of February and March. I can't guarantee that it'll be on education, and that theme is yet to be released, but there are different ways of kind of framing, educational projects that they may fit one of our themes. So basically all I can say is keep in touch, and you're on our mailing list, so we'll let you know when that round 7 is available. And same for round 6, if you can be, if there is a climate element or climate component of your organization's operations, or as some way that you can frame it that is relevant to the theme, then yeah, we encourage you kind of thinking outside the box around that. But thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Joanna, hello. I see you've joined, and I see you turned on your camera. Do you have a question for us, or you just wanted to say hello? And you're on mute, by the way. Joanna, you're still on mute.
Yes. Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Sorry, I'm late a bit. I want to introduce my name. My name is Joana Guzman from Timor-Leste. As director in one of the organization, the name of the organization we call Untitled. I was really interested to join in this meeting because I also want to know better about the fund that Australian government will support to Timor-Leste. Actually, we have several information from the Australian Embassy in Timor-Leste. I think this is a good opportunity to share with the EU what we have done what we have do in our organization. Empresariac is local organization that work with a mission, work to fight poverty in Timor-Leste. We also we have several support from national and international organizations in Timor-Leste. In the past, we also support by Australian government. I think for this moment, I also want to ask how should Empresariac apply for the fund that support by this organization regarding to our meeting. I just want to ask that one. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Joanna, there may have been some valuable information in this session. I will level with you. We are wrapping up, so we're right on the verge of finishing. So you have a couple of options in terms of getting that information. One, we hope to put this, or we'll put this, a recording of this session online. So if you wanted to watch it back, you can do so. We're also hosting another webinar session, which is tomorrow. So you can jump back onto the event link and you could register for tomorrow if you wanted to be part of the full session, and you could see all that information. The best place to start, and that's one of the things we've gone through, is the Impact Fund website. So the Impact Fund website has the Applicant Guidelines, and the Applicant Guidelines are a really, really great kind of starting point for understanding everything, the eligibility of your organization, what this round focuses on, the kind of projects that we're looking for, the criteria. And there's also a range of other things. There's some FAQs up on our website. There's some really great animation videos. So my suggestion would be to engage with some of those materials. Join the webinar tomorrow, or watch this webinar back if you have the opportunity. And then you can also work with, I don't know if you've been in touch with the Australian Volunteers Program office in Timor-Leste. Jose, also known as Kiko, is our representative there, who's fantastic. So you could kind of continue to discuss with him, particularly if you guys have a particular idea that you already have in mind. That hopefully there's something you can formulate there for round 6. I hope that helps. Joanna, you're on mute again.
Actually, in the past, we also have several volunteers from AVI. I think it was in 2018, but from 2018 until now, we did not receive any volunteer from Australia. That's why I think, how can we apply for, how can we, how to say, if you want to have like job voluntary from AVI, what should we do to have that one? Because in the past, yeah.
No, excellent question. So if you're looking to kind of re-engage with the program with volunteers, then Jose is definitely your starting point. If you provide us with your email, Chloe has just sent a message in the chat with your email. If you give us your email address, we'll send you we'll send you a bit of information on a few things, both the grants program and kind of re-engaging with the program and volunteers, if that works.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. You're welcome. We will wrap up there, guys. Thank you again to all of you, particularly to our special guest, Sylvia. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Joanna, did you want to put your email